reminder.
I'm actually recording then.
Okay, so we're ready to start then, colleagues.
Yeah,
so I'm going to welcome everyone to the meeting, both councillors and members of the public, and remind everybody that we are experimenting in this committee with having an open forum at the start of the meeting for questions sent in advance by members of the public. This is a trial, and we may need to try it several times before we decide whether it's worthwhile. Just can I check with you, Mark Webster, our officer, have we had any questions sent in prior to the meeting?
Not for this meeting, no, Chair.
Okay, so it's an opportunity to remind members of the public that you are welcome to send in questions on planning matters to this meeting, to the planning officer if you wish to. They have to be sent in advance of the meeting so that we can plan to answer them. But you're most welcome to do that. Having said that, on this occasion, we'll move then on to the agenda proper with the first item, which is 118. So, colleagues, are there any declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest?
No.
No.
I've never been mistaken for a taxi driver before.
We're getting some noises off, but I'm not hearing any declarations.
Protection comes from. It's like chapter 5 of course the such behaviour can result from children feeling stressed or not correctly binding their head.
That may be councillor.
Maybe someone has to mute their microphone. Can we move on to 119? Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Your blood glucose level is high. Are you remembering to take your medication? Well, if you try it off the wall with a shot going bust, things have been a little hectic of late. That doesn't make any difference. You need to take your metformin and monitor your blood glucose levels. Looks through the head.
Let's just remind everyone who's not speaking to mute their microphones. A lot of feedback.
We're hearing something. We are hearing something fairly indistinct but loud. Can you do as Mark suggests, please, and mute your microphone if you've got a background noise of some kind? We've got a dead silence now, which is the opposite. Well done. So 119. Did we hear whether there are any apologies, please?
No, I haven't received any apologies. I have not received any apologies.
Sorry about that. Okay, thanks for that. There are no apologies. Moving on to 120, which is the minutes of the last meeting. So this is the 9th of June meeting, and it's been through full council. And we just want to check it's a true record. Hopefully you've got 120, which is the minutes on your screen. Any comments, please, on the bit you can see, which is 25 to 28. Silence means we move on to 29 onwards. So that's the minutes of the previous meeting. Can we just move up the screen a bit more? Lovely, thank you. So 29, 30, 31. Any comments on those items, please? No. And if not,
no.
Can we move on to? Sorry.
No.
Okay, on to 32. We're just covering the planning applications at item number 31. Any comments on that? No. If you move up again, is this Chris moving the scroll? So we've cleared 31 now. Okay. Bit more of 31 to come on the next screen.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm happy to move on now if you are to items 32 to 34.
Yep.
And this is the 34. We're halfway through the GTP minute, which went on for some distance, as you can see.
Jen's got her hand.
If I can stop you there for a moment, just to confirm that at the end of that minute, it says a recommendation that Thetford Town Council add a 50-minute open forum. You'll recall that the town clerk subsequently ruled that the committee had the power to make that decision themselves. So that's why we've got that now. In this meeting, we have decided to try this ourselves. Okay, on to 35 to 37. Any comments on that, please? And 38. Colleagues, can I ask if you're agreeable to accept these minutes as a true record?
I am.
Agreed.
Mr. Chairman.
You may have been muted, in which case we apologise. I'm speaking and someone else has to do the actions. It's getting the time together is difficult. Okay, so I'm going to assume that everyone's happy to accept those minutes. Just a moment pause in case you've missed the opportunity and wanted to say something.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, hello.
I did put my hands up, but never mind.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. I was just going to go back to the. I was going to go back to the. I can't find it now. The listed building consent. Plan numbers 0502. Thetford Multiple Municipal Charities. They got planning permission from Breckland today. On the wall.
Thank you very much for that update. That is appreciated.
I did sit
because we were concerned that they had passed on to the planning committee, but as you say, it's now gone through. It will have been the chairman's panel of the planning committee, I presume.
No, it went before full committee this afternoon.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, so I sat and watched it all. Yeah.
So much. Excellent. Okay. Well, that's very good.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. This is Councillor Canham. I'm sorry I'm late. I had trouble getting in, but I am in it now.
Brenda, it's a wonderful excuse. We all use it. So good to have you with us. And we've just agreed that pleased to hear from Jen that the almshouses wall proposal has gone through. So hopefully they can get on with that now. Yeah. Okay, so that was just clearing up a piece that we'd missed. We're going to go on to the planning applications themselves. So Mark, it's up to you really now to look at the first one on 121, which is number 28, and it's the solar photovoltaics proposal of Tesco. And hopefully, colleagues, you've now got it on your screen. So that's the picture of the Tesco site. You'll recall this is a wish to put solar panels on the roof of the store. If you look at the other pictures that Mark's done for us, if you can move on, Mark, so you've got the, that's it. So they have explained pretty convincingly, I hope you'll agree, that the glare should not be a problem, at least not for human beings. If you're flying high, maybe it's another matter. Any comments or concerns about the Tesco proposal, or can we support that? Please, colleagues. And I haven't got access to who's put their hand up, so that's a bit of an issue, isn't it?
Can you keep an eye on the conversations, please?
I am watching the meeting chat. I've got an anonymous comment of every little bit helps, which I think comes from Mr. Tesco themselves. Support from Councillors Hollis Hodgkinson.
Okay, we've got several people supporting it on the chat, so I'm going to assume that you're happy to let that go through. I've got Carla Dennis Stewart at least.
Postcode down.
Support from Councillor Wright. Also.
Okay.
And Councillors Veretto and Jay.
I'm assuming that there's no problem with the Tesco application. So we've now got on our screen the next one, number 546, which is the sad issue of the fire damage at Nether Row. Are there any comments on this, please? You can see the on your screen the information that's required. Hopefully, the district buildings officer has agreed to the proposal, given that the right materials are used. Is anyone objecting to that? Does anyone want to object or express concern about number 546?
Support from Councillor Wright. Can I just clarify a little thing on this? basically, I get the impression from correspondence from members that the paragraph you can see in the middle left of your screen there, whilst noting the applicant is a member of the Town Council staff, we welcome the reinstatement of this listed building in conjunction with historic building officer's recommendations. I think originally suggested by Councillor Wright, seems to have had broad sort of consensus support. What I do just need clarifying is whether when I submit the answers to Breckland of your deliberations, I have a drop-down menu that has 4 options, which is support, object, no comment, or comment. Now, in each case, whatever you choose for that, you then have to put in a comment, even if you've said no comment. But so I just the only clarification, really, assuming that people are still happy with that sentence in the middle there, is whether you are actually in support of this, or whether you feel you want to sort of step back and just offer a comment. So if we could just have a sort of a decision on that matter, folks, if everyone is happy with the paragraph.
Mark, pardon me, I'm happy with that. I'm going to suggest to the committee that we do support and we do add that comment. It seems to cover us. We've made the point that we could be accused of having an interest. So we've agreed to that. I think that's perfectly reasonable. It's up to the members of the committee now to say whether they approve of that suggestion I've made or not. So, colleagues, it's your chance now to say whether that's appropriate in your mind.
We have support from councillors James and Hodgkinson, also Crawford, who has a hand up as well.
No, that's all right. Just
okay.
Supporting.
Yeah. Also support from Councillor Wright.
Mr. Chairman, I support it also.
Yep. Can we ask if there's any objections to support but with the comment? Yeah. Councillors Harvey and Barretto also supporting. Yep. Can we take that as read then for everybody, that it's a support but with the comment? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed.
If you just scroll down, Chris, you can actually see. We can actually see the plans. Yeah. Keep going. Next page. You can actually see the plans there for the elevations. There's no substantial changes. It is very much a like-for-like replacement. Next page, if we can. Similarly with the rear view, you might just want to note the comments from the historic buildings consultant. He did ask for a few sort of quite precise technical specifications on the type of lime mortar and aggregates, etc. But he's now come back and said the developers have agreed to all the changes requested and therefore would be happy for approving no conditions. So I will, as I said, now go ahead and support with the comment as requested.
Good. Thank you very much for that, Mark and colleagues. I just would like to say on our behalf that we hope that can be speedily reinstated, because the people who live in it have suffered enough already. On to 611, which is the Fisher Way development. I think you probably can see that on your screen, hopefully, with a picture on the left, a map on the right. So this is a significant enlargement to 32 Fisher Way. Are there any comments on that one, please? Or attention to.
Would you like me to run through the plans, etc.?
I think that's, we can't put everything on the screen at once, can we?
No. So,
if you say what the concerns are.
Well, so if you have a look at the picture on the first screen, shows where the two garages are. So the left garage with the white door is the neighbours, and the red garage door is the house in question. You can see on the right of your screen, hopefully, where it says proposed extension, you'll see that it extends basically over the garage right up to the neighbour's fence line, along the side there and behind the house as well. If we could have the next screen there. Thank you, Chris. So you can see as I say, on the right hand side there is the proposed addition, covering, as I said, where the garage was and going up to the existing roof line. And there's the side view again, showing it extending into the back garden. Okay, next one, please. These are very pale, unfortunately, but hopefully you've had a chance to see these. The plans just show, the internal arrangements there. Extra bedroom upstairs, basically. Next one, if we could. There are a number of objections. I've actually just had another check, and there's another couple even after that. One of which mentions that there's an outbuilding being built in the back garden in addition to what's actually on the plans, which is happening now. Yeah, as I said, it's not necessarily material considerations, but it definitely does seem to be very unpopular with quite a number of people in the surrounding area. Yeah, sorry, over to you, councillors, for comments.
Any comments, particularly from ward councillors who may have been able to take a closer view of this and be aware of what the general thinking is among people who live nearby?
Nothing coming up on the chat at the moment.
No, I'm not seeing anything on the chat. Mark, is everyone muted at the moment?
Well, it doesn't appear to be. I'm guessing nobody wants to first.
Why do you have my
Councillor Hollis, maybe overdevelopment.
Yes.
Councillor Wright, is that hands up?
I had hands up.
And I've had a hands up as well.
Oh, yes, sorry. They're coming in thick and fast now. So, yes, sorry. Councillor Hodgkinson first.
Mr. Chairman, I've got my hand up. Guess it's Colin Burnett.
Do you want to go first, Colin?
Yeah, I've got my hand up.
We've only got Dave with a hand up on the screen. That's not your fault, I'm sure, but that's all we're seeing. So, is it Dave first, and then was that Dennis after Dave?
Well, I did put my hands up. I don't know what's happening. It says 8.
No, I don't know either, Brenda. The last bit I've got from you is agreed. So can I take Dave and then
okay.
Dennis, if you were next, and then Brenda?
Yeah, I think it is a very big extension, and I think it could be called overdevelopment. I can understand that the immediate neighbours would not be particularly happy because of shadows and things like that. So I think maybe we should object on to overdevelopment.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, did you wish to speak?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in agreement with people. I think it is overdevelopment, and we just need to say that. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that, Brenda.
My lines are on the same theme. If you're extending a house to make it bigger, you're actually taking the garage away, you're taking another parking space away as well. And if you've got a bigger house, it means because your family's growing, well, you're going to have more cars in the future. That's why I say that it is overdevelopment. And I don't know. If they'd gone over the top of the garage, I could understand that, but to take the garage away, I'm not understanding that.
Thank you for that. I think I've got Stuart. I've definitely got Jane, and we perhaps need a reminder for Colin as well. Thanks for that, Colin. Yeah. So it's Stuart next.
Thank you, Mike. I think looking at the plan from above, the next doors has an extension going back, and this one is probably in line with the rear garden extension to that. It is obviously larger than the one next door. I didn't look at the plans very quickly, but I thought they retained the garage, but they were building above it.
That is correct. Can we actually go back to
I missed that.
Yeah, to be fair, it doesn't go within the building. Chris, can we go back to the plans?
Saying yes, but I was muted. Sorry.
Oh, so, yeah. Keep going. Perhaps that one, or yeah, the next one along. I think it's probably there.
Well, So I think they're maintaining a garage space within the new build. Right, so yeah. I think it will be out of size to the adjoining properties because they haven't had the extensions that this one looks to. But I think I'm quite happy to support if it's in keeping. I don't understand the neighbours in keeping, whether it's the size purely or whether it's the materials. I think it looks much of a similar design, so it must be just the size that the neighbours really objecting to.
Yeah, the neighbour objections are on various grounds. Size is definitely one of them compared to other extensions in the area, making it out of keeping. Noise, disturbance, loss of light, brick wall going right up to their property, that sort of issues are what they're mentioning for. We've got Colin who's wanting to make a comment by phone, just to remind you. Oh, and Councillor James as well.
Yes, can I just be clear, please, Stuart? You used the word support. Were you supporting what people were saying, or were you in support of the proposal?
I would support the proposal,
okay.
Given
the
design.
I think we've got Jane next, and then I'll come back. Colin. Jane,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too, like Stuart, would like to speak in support of this application. Actually, he's rightly observed that there is the retention of a garage area, so therefore minimising the impact on any additional parking and that side of things. And actually, looking at the streetscape, there is also already another property that has extended on the second story basis above the garage. The question is I think the differential is the abutting the actual second garage, but I too would support this building extension. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colin, are you able to respond? Are you wishing to have a word?
Yes, please, for mate. I also would like to support this because, in my opinion, the only real objection that I think the neighbours got is they're talking about it's stealing their light, which is not a planning issue anyway. It's a civil matter. So therefore, that doesn't come into it. And as far as I can see, I don't see that it's overdevelopment as such at all. I think it's just doing what everyone else has done, just a little bit better. So I support it.
Thank you very much for that. We've got rather a division, unusually, in the committee at the moment.
Hands up from Councillor Barreto as well.
I think, Carla, I think it's your opportunity now, Carla.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very shortly, I would tend to agree with Stuart and Jane on this one. They're retaining the garage, so the parking will not be an issue. They're just getting more house space physically. And from the drawing that I'm looking at from the side, it doesn't seem to weigh much from the features and the lineup of the building, in line with other buildings like Jane mentioned. So I would also support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Canham, hands up.
I'm not sure whether Brenda's got a further comeback.
Yeah, I did want to come back because I didn't notice that garage at the front. It sort of went too quickly. It's been a long day. Been planning at Breckland all day. When they say that they're, what my question is when they're saying they're overlooked, how are they overlooked? That must be at the back, because you can't be overlooked at the front because it's a garage. It's in between you. So is it the back that we're talking about?
Well, I can't speak for the neighbours, of course, but I think it's the sort of back and side of the extension being right up to the fence line that is one of the causes of objection.
Are there any further comments, please?
Dave, hands up.
I've got Dave.
Hello, Dave. Myself. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Looking at the plans, the side view is showing obscure glass in the two windows on the side. So I think the overlooking must be only from the back. There is the extension going out the back is full height, whereas the one next door is a lower height. But having heard the other councillors, I think I will change my mind and go to support, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, colleagues. We've now got probably a majority in support, but I just want to be sure about that. It looks to me, I'm putting words into your mouth probably, that the majority are in favour of supporting the development, but there is some concern about the feelings of neighbours being ignored, which we wouldn't wish to do as a general rule, unless we think that they are not really sufficient planning realities, that they're not really planning issues, as Colin has pointed out. I'm happy to go to a vote if you think that's necessary. At the moment, my feeling is the majority is now in favour of supporting. Let me put it this way. Would anyone like a vote because they're concerned that that's not an accurate comment? The comment was there's a majority for supporting.
Councillor Hollis, no planning reason to object.
I think you're right, Jen. I think there's what we're doing really here is voicing what the neighbours are feeling. I can't honestly think they will have much effect on Breckland, who have to be ruthlessly looking only at planning reasons. They cannot risk turning something down unless there's proper planning reasons. Colleagues, I'm going to ask you to agree that we support this. I don't necessarily think we need to put any comments in. The objections by neighbours are well established, so they're there already. Can we just say we support this? Is there anyone who feels that's a wrong decision?
Support, Councillor Cannon.
Thank you very much, Brenda.
Support, Councillor Burnett.
Yeah. I think we've got we had Stuart in support, we had Jane in support, we had Dave in support, so we have got a significant, possibly even everybody now, but certainly a majority now are in support. Mark, can you take that on board? And I think we'd just be a bit cautious and just say we support it without necessarily giving any reasons.
Okay, simple support. Yep.
Thanks very much. Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next one. If I can adjust my screen for a minute and find what it is.
Yep. So, if we just for a second hold it there, Chris. So 649. This was 1347. It was actually granted planning permission by Breckland, but they seem to have gone back to it and noticed some technical inconsistencies between the plan drawings. So if we could move on to the next page, we're looking at the garden centre up on the Gilveston Road, and it's the purple section there on your top left of your screen that is the extension to the existing very large building. Yeah, if we go to the next page. You'll see I've circled them in yellow. As you can see, it's the bit on the right as you would go into the entrance. And yeah, just going further down, again, I've sort of circled or ovaled it in yellow on the side view of the building. This was, as I said, something that the town council was happy to support previously. As I said, apart from sort of technical corrections, I don't see any sort of changes to that. So I suppose the question is, are you happy to continue to support this?
I think that's right. I'm going to reverse that and say, is anyone not happy to continue to support?
Councillor Harvey, support. Was that a hands up from Councillor James?
It is, yes.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I'd like to say realistically, there is no material consideration that would suggest that we would turn this down on the basis of that error stroke omission. And actually, it's wonderful to still see a business in Thetford prepared to invest in Thetford. Thank you.
Okay.
I can't say that strongly enough, Jane. It's been a successful business for many years. Great Thetford business. It's wildly popular with the public. It wins awards. So if there's no material objection, as you rightly say, I hope we'll support. No bars from me at all, for once. Anyone feeling not happy about supporting what we did before? Is everyone happy that we support this proposal?
Councillor Cannon, support. Yeah.
I think we can assume that's agreed, Mark. That's 659, and perhaps move on to 1167.
Okay.
You want to introduce again, please, Mark?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joe. The 1167 is one, again, that has passed across your desks before. This one has substantially changed, though. So the original proposal was considered in October last year, when the council did support it, but only on the following conditions were met. So you're looking for a significant reduction in the number of trees lost. This is Caxton Way, sorry, just to clarify. We'll have a look at the plans in a second, but it's the site on sort of behind Trox, if you like, on Caxton Way. It's the sort of remaining area sort of between existing industrial sites. So, as I said, originally 170 trees were going to be lost, and that was considered too high. And there was a very thin tree belt was put in, less than the width of a tree, basically. The council also asked for any mitigation for loss of trees not to be necessarily within the Forestry Commission, who would be planting trees anyway, but to be in the town. Also, said they would like to see green roofs included in the development, and noting the parking and traffic issues on the site. So the plans, which we'll see in a minute, do include quite a bit of additional mitigation for the loss of the natural habitats. The particularly big impact was on the grassland in the area. So that has now been reduced to a moderate negative impact under the new proposals. There's still a major negative impact on the lizards, but that could be at least partly mitigated by translocation, i.e. literally catching them and moving them before the development takes place. So, as I said, the big impact really of this would be the trees and the grassland. So, yeah, if we could go on to the plans, please, Chris, the first one. Next page. Hopefully we'll see in a second. The next page is was the original plans. Chris, are you there?
Yes, yeah.
Are you stuck?
Would you want me to go back?
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, sorry. Can we go back to we were stuck there, so I didn't see the previous one. We just go back to the That's right. So this was as originally proposed. Now, I don't know whether you can move your. You probably won't be able to see it, Chris, but on the sort of at the entrance there on the brown patch, there was a plot D. That was all the trees were to be removed from there. On the pink area, originally that was a third large unit with yard. What's basically happened in the new proposal, which you'll see in a second, is that the pink area, some of that and some of the blue area, which again was all hard standing, some of that has been retained as a sort of relic of the grassland, which covers a lot of the site, which is really wildflower rich. I mean, it's a very good patch of grassland. So they have retained some of that, and they've retained trees in what was plot D, and also at the sort of very top of the plans, at the sort of apex there, where it's near the A11. So can we go on to the next page then, Chris? And this is the revised plans. So as you'll see, what was the brown bit, plot D, is now to be retained as a tree belt. Similarly, at the top there is a larger area of retained trees. So we're now looking at two sort of larger, two very substantial industrial units. So the one on the left of your screen, plot A, again, you'll see the dotted area. In the corner there is the retained grassland, and so plot B is now larger, but there is no plot C on the right of your screen. Some of that has gone to an enlarged yard for plot B, and some of it is again retained as a sort of stippled bit as grassland. So I reckon, and I have confirmed this with Norfolk Wildlife Services, who did the ecological report, we're looking at, instead of 170 trees being lost, about 75 trees being lost. And as I said, there are sort of areas of grassland that have now been retained and enhanced as part of this proposal. So yeah, over to you for comments, folks.
Yes, comments welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Councillor Burnett would like to say something.
Did you hear that, Mark? Colin Burnett?
Yes, Colin.
Councillor Burnett to speak.
Hi. This is a great improvement on the initial plans that they made, and it means that 95 trees have been saved and more grassland has been saved as well. So I'm in favour of it.
Thank you for that, Colin. Any more comments, please?
Hands up from Councillor Wright and Hollis. Hollis, Wright and Harvey in that order.
Yes, please. Thank you. Jen first.
Thank you. I support it. We need new businesses and that in the town, so I support it. And as Colin said, we've saved some trees.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it looks like there's plenty of parking there as well. So yeah, I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's good. I think Stuart was next.
Thank you, Mike. Mark, just a question. Have they done anything regarding green roofs and also the entrance? We asked for a wide display there because there are entrance problems to do with that Caxton Way. But overall, I think they've made great grounds, and I would support it as it is. But I think if we could just ask the question about the green roofs and the entrance, because very concerned.
Yeah, there's no mention. So there's no mention of my phone's going off. There's no mention of green roofs on this. But that is probably because it's just an outline sort of planning permission at this stage. Certainly one option would be to sort of retain that comment from the last time and say I think last time the wording was something like would support as long as certain conditions are met, and you can certainly, if you wish to, include happy to support on the condition that there is some provision for green roofs. On the issue of display, I don't know whether we can actually compare the two, Chris, whether we can actually sort of go up and then down again to look at them. The only thing I can say on that is that highways are happy with the proposals. So basically, I mean, their technical knowledge would sort of hold sway with Breckland on that issue, I think. There's a couple more hands up, Chair, as well. I think we've got. In fact, there's a lot more hands up. Almost everybody. But next, Councillor Harvey, I think next, and then Crawford.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, myself, Jenny, and Brenda went and have a look at this site, and last year, and yeah, I'm fully in support. It's a really good idea there.
Okay, thank you.
Crawford, I think next.
Dennis next.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think generally they made a concerted effort to try to take in some of our suggestions and everything. It will be a benefit to the town. My only concern is with the lizard population. In the time I've lived in Thetford, I've seen it reduced so much it's bad, and they're not the easiest creatures to catch and everything. So. And if you did catch them, how do we know that the area they're going to be put in would be viable for the colony?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I mean, catching them is a procedure that's carried out quite often. I mean, Norfolk Wildlife Services is one of the companies that does that. Right? It is a sort of quite regularly carried out procedure. The more interesting question, I think, probably is on the retention of the habitat. To some extent, ecologically speaking, there's not a lot of point in putting them where there isn't the habitat, of course. It's only a temporary life-saving measure. The proposal is at the moment to relocate them on the site, so they would be sort of kept in those areas of the site that are retained as habitat. I mean, technically, as I said, that may not be that helpful. It may be the only option that makes sort of much in the way of mitigation at all, though. That's the only thing that can be said about that, I fear.
Can I come back on that?
Yes, please do come back.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that does not give me much hope in the end, because you're greatly reducing the area of habitat. If the population is going to be crammed into a smaller habitat area, then you're going to lose a lot of them, because they're not the most people-friendly animals. They tend to try to leave areas where there's a lot of footfall and everything. And if they like to be spread out, you know, in an area. And if you're concentrating on smaller, it's like people. The more you concentrate people, the more troubles you get. So thank you.
Yeah, I think there is an issue there. We perhaps need to establish whether the common lizard is threatened across Thetford as a whole. I suspect the answer is probably not. I did see one on Barnham Common a fortnight ago. Looked happy enough. If it's a threatened species, I think we'd be taking a different line. I suspect, for once, the word common.
It is a threatened species.
Yeah.
All the reptile species are threatened. They're all under protection habit things, and we're not supposed to disturb them. So every single one of the British reptiles are on the endangered species list.
Thanks very much, Dennis. I'm just not clear.
Sorry for being so emotional, but it's a shame.
I'm going to move on from that. I think, tell me if I'm wrong about this, I've got Carla and then Jane and then Brenda at least. So, Carla, you wanting to talk?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick mention. I would be in support of this as well. Reason being is that this came back, they made some adjustments. They took in consideration of a lot of the mitigating factors that we presented. And these are hard times. We need to promote the economy. We need to promote more business investing in testers. That's the majority of the point for me being in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would echo support for the mitigating steps that the developer has taken in order to reduce the impact. The predicted major negative impact to the site of the common lizard is unfortunate, but there are mitigation steps outlined, and it does, in answer to Councillor Hodgkinson's query that he has raised, it does look like there's a pond on there, so there's actually added habitat being provided. And I would like to support the comments from the Air Quality Officer regarding the provision of bicycle parking and electric vehicle charging points and sustainable travel to enhance this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. On to Brenda.
Can I just clarify about the question that Councillor Hodgson has asked as well as Councillor James mentioning just there. That sort of blue patch in the stippled area on the right-hand side is marked as a swale, which is a low marshy depression. So not an actual open water pond as such, but as you say, a variation in the habitat.
Thanks for that. Brenda, are you wanting to come in again?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when we went up there, we didn't find no pond. We walked around most of the site, which was quite big. I am in support of this, but we are still going to lose the trees. Do we need to put in that we still need to replace them trees somewhere, like we did before? And also, although Highways have looked at the display as Stuart said, that is a very tight corner there, and I'm just wondering if that is wide enough, especially if they're big lorries. It's a very tight, you know, when we went up there, we were sort of like walked into a forest. That's how we actually got in there, but it is quite tight there. So yeah, because we haven't got measurements, I can't really tell. But I am in support. We do need industry. We need industry in Britain, let alone Thetford. But yeah, but I am in support. But I would like to say that, you know, we need to ask the question again about replacing trees somewhere.
Thanks, Brenda. I think that's very helpful. The point about display is right. Presumably, Highways have to look at it. If it's a new application, they will have to look at it again. So hopefully, we'll get an agreement from them that it's appropriate if they think it is, and not if it's not. In terms of the trees, I think we have to go along with what you say, because it's our own planning policy is to say that when trees are removed, they should be replaced 2 for 1. So we've got to keep that in our own response to this proposal. Having said that, as you, to use your phrase, it looks as if there's a majority in favour here. I think we share the concern most voiced by Dennis about the lizards. I just feel that we don't have a situation where they are rare in Thetford or threatened in Thetford as a whole. So I think we're kind of doing our responsibility by making sure there's still possible for them to survive in other parts of the town. And we've got, as Dave calls it, a good bit of added habitat there. So hopefully there will still be lizards in the nearby area. I wonder whether we've given this a reasonable chat now, and I think reluctantly, but again, as we were a bit reluctant last time, we support, given the various concerns that we've expressed about display, about the lizards, about the trees. We can repeat those, and hopefully Brecon will demand those if they decide to give support. So can I ask colleagues, are you happy to support with those reservations?
Agree.
Okay, we're getting some agreement.
Can I just ask, Chair, as well, did you also wish to include Councillor James's comments about the air quality officers' recommendations? Did you also want to add those?
That is appropriate to include, and although it's not appropriate to put it here, Jane has also made the point about, and others have echoed it, about the need for more business in Thetford. We really should be looking at that as an important issue that we should be supporting. This is fundamentally, this is really an industrial area, which has happened to be, luckily in the past, has escaped. It's been green in the past, but it is within a industrial development area. So we'd be looking for this, I think, if we possibly can. I wonder whether the simplest thing is to ask Mark to repeat our previous comments and make sure that we add in all the points that have been made. I'm going to suggest, thank you. I'm going to suggest, colleagues, that we accept that that's the best we can do on 674. In which case that completes the item, which was numbered 121. So we're going to move on to item 122 now.
Chair, just to hang on, Chair. That was 1167. Application 0674 is still to be.
I'm so sorry, I missed one out.
Discussed.
Quite right. So we've still got 674 to cover, which is the substation. Would you like to introduce this one then, Mark?
Yep.
Chair, I wish to object. I've had my hands up on the previous thing, and I haven't been called back for that. I wanted some clarification, and
Dennis,
I don't think it's worth doing it if we're not going to have our say.
Dennis, I'm sorry you weren't called back. Because I've seen your name on the screen and heard you speak, I assumed that you had spoken. If you'd like to speak again, please do so. But bear in mind what other colleagues have said.
I put my hand up. I just wanted a bit of clarification. I will reluctantly support the thing because I do agree with the other councillors. Industry is really a must in this town. We need more and everything. But I want the clarification I want from our countryside officer is that all British reptiles are on the endangered species list, and I want clarification that is a statement.
Dennis, thanks very much.
Okay, well,
we can ask Mark to speak on it now, or come back to you with a reply later. If it's up to Mark to say whether he wants to say now, or whether he wants to reply. Whether he wants to reply later. Mark, any comment from you about that?
Chair, can you? Well, only to say that it's not one of the species that specifically sort of has additional problems. They are protected by law, and it's illegal to deliberately kill, injure, or sell them,
or move them.
So they do have a degree of protection. But but not sort of the same level as say a Great Crested Newt. But I can come back to you with a more detailed sort of look at that, and I can also come back with you with sort of more detail on the sort of mitigation that has been proposed, which did also include some additional sort of hibernaculum facilities on the site for them. So yeah, I can come back with you with more detail on that if that's.
I know if you're not licensed to capture them and you capture them, there's a big fine. I know that.
Yeah, so you would have to have a licensed person to carry out the translocation.
Thanks very much for that. I think that's covered it. Jane has got on screen, for those who have not seen it yet, that it is protected in the UK under the recent under the legislation. I think if we wish, we can add in a comment suggesting Bretland should have what's the word? Take note of the conservation status of the common lizard. And I think that's doing our duty by the common lizard, and it's really up to Bretland to decide whether that's something which they see this mitigation as being sufficient for or not. So, Mark, if we can add that into our list of yes, we support, but only if that would be helpful.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. Thanks for coming back to that, Dennis. I think it's worth making sure that we are acting on behalf of both humans and lizards if we possibly can. And we're going to move on now, colleagues, to item 122.
Sorry, Chair, we still haven't done 674. Application 674.
I've done my best to miss it out. Thank you, Mark.
So, yeah, so this is the, as you said, the substation at the northern end of the cable, the electrical cable that would connect to the main national grid to the Sue development. So I should just stress this application specifically refers to that where it emerges at the northern end. It's not all about the whole cable route, which is covered by separate applications. So we're talking about the area at the northern end. So there would be, in the long term, a substation, electricity substation there. In the short term, during the construction phase, it would be used as a works depot. So as I say, it's those two specific things that we're considering here. Can we go to the next page, please, Chris? So you'll see on the sort of left there, you see where the cable sort of comes out from along the road and where it ends up as the substation near the roundabout on the A11, which is shown in more detail on the right. So the substation is at the bottom of that compound, and that will be there for the long term. In the sort of between, next up is various storage areas. On the right hand side near the fence, there'd be sort of site offices and loos for the staff. On the left hand side near the entrance, there's a sort of a little tea room, a little rest area for the crews, and then sort of more there's parking at the top end and the sort of bunds and more storage right on the sort of northern fence. So you may wish to note sort of where the nearest properties are, which is sort of just across the way, and there's more detail on that in this next one. So yeah, you can see both the sort of plan of the site and the aerial view there. Even when it's going, they say there's only going to be about a couple of HGV movements and maybe about 50 small van movements a day into the site, and very minimal after that. They have had their noise detectors out, and they point out that the noise of the site is going to be, they say, less than the actual road is at the moment. It's already a sort of an area of quite substantial noise, of course, because of the bypass. So yeah, if we could just scroll down slightly further, Chris. I mean, as I said, that's as I said, their claim is that the noise wouldn't be a significant addition. It doesn't actually mention what would happen to the rest of the compound after this application, after the sort of construction phase is over. But the substation would be apart from to say that the area is sort of allocated for employment or commercial use. So yeah, over to you for comments.
Comments, please, colleagues, either on the permanent arrangement, which is the substation, or on the temporary arrangement, which is the area in which the substation will be constructed. Any comments?
A number of councillors have issued support. I think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councillor Wright, hands up.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we did have the conference call with the contractors on this, and they explained pretty much, what we're seeing in front of us, that it's going to be a temporary use storage area, and then once longer term, it'd probably be decreased. It could be an area hard standing, could be commercial, but I think only the substation bit would be fenced off. So I think it's a necessary evil. We're going to have power to the site. I would support that. I'd just like to make a comment about the ecological report that accompanied this item. It is very disappointing that they don't seem to be able to know the difference between the River Thet and the Little Ouse. Having read that, I did get my back up a little, but there we go. That's what we pay consultants for. Maybe we can pass that back at some point, but yes, I will support.
Thank you very much for that. And I dare say, if you ask the citizens of Thetford, not everybody would know which is which at which point. And I have to say, although I live so close, I don't always get it right. The chat is showing significant support for this, so I think, Mark, you've got clearly a majority of supporters here.
Yeah,
so I don't know whether there's anything else we need to say.
Okay, I think you might finally be able to go 1, 2, 2.
All my attempts to miss that item out have failed, so dare I now for the third time say we're on to item 1, 2, 2, which is, if I'm not corrected again, 122 is the proposed amendments to the Town Council's policy on planning issues, and we should be able to get it on screen fairly soon. There it is.
I'm seeing that now.
Can you see it? Yeah.
So just to explain what the yellow bits are, basically, councillors Wright, Hollis and Canham, myself went through what was a sort of a very old document, and the working group has suggested updates to the council's existing policy, and the reason why the title is highlighted is just because it was called Planning Policy Guidance, which that's just really for me that it's confusing compared to what the planning policy guidance generally refers to sort of national policies from government, or planning policy framework as it now is. But basically, if you'd like to, I suppose that over you, Chair, but if you'd like to sort of go through it and see if you agree with what the working group has suggested, I suppose.
Thanks, Mark. I think that's the correct thing to do. I do think it's important that you were a member of the group effectively. I do think it's important that we thank Jenny Hollis, Brenda Canham, Stuart Wright, and yourself, Mark, for the work that's been done. It seems to me, looking through it, a very considerable improvement on what we had before. And colleagues, what I'm suggesting now is that we take it point by point, just go quickly looking at all those points that have got yellow bits, and give you an opportunity to comment if you wish to do so. So starting with Commons and Greens, there's an additional sentence at the end there. Yes, please, if you have a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and perfectly, it is exactly on the page that we are showing at the moment. How good is that? I'm wondering if, in terms of that first part, in terms of countryside and conservation areas, where it says within the town that is specifically highlighted, do we need to be a bit more mindful and perhaps say within the parish boundary? That's the question. And bearing in mind the previous but one application, the second item on Commons and Greens, it states the Town Council also opposes any development on green spaces within the town, including amenity land within housing estates. Now, that's actually mitigated within the ecology and nature conservation next bullet point that you can just see at the bottom of the screen there. But if we're saying any, we're very, very specifically saying something, whereas I think perhaps a tweaking of that phrasing might be more appropriate, because perhaps unnecessary development, or I hate to do a value judgment on it, but something along those lines. And I'm really sorry, for once I'm at a loss for words. But I think any development is a very blanket statement that ultimately would prevent that previous item. We would actually say, according to this policy, we can't support this. So I think there perhaps needs to be a bit more flexibility in terms of that, and perhaps actually reduce any development on green spaces within the town to any development on green spaces, specifically amenity lands within housing estates.
I think that was what was meant, if I remember rightly from the meeting, and other councillors there may wish to sort of just to clarify that as well. But I think what it said before was a slightly different phrasing, and the intent was, by saying green spaces, was to say it did mean public green amenity spaces. Yeah, there's actually a comment from Councillor Wright there, could change any to the. Yeah, well, we could also put in public green spaces if you like.
I think that might be a more appropriate response, if I may come back on that, Mr. Chairman. But do we want to be more specific in that first yellow amendment within the town? Do we actually want to say within the parish boundary? Because obviously boundary reviews, that kind of thing, we need to be mindful of perhaps a bit of planning for the future as well there. Thank you, sorry.
Not at all. I'm grateful for you drawing our attention to both those points. The first one is that they're both tricky, and I think you're right to hone in on the exact wording on the first one. We do need to make sure that we don't ever say something which will come back to haunt us afterwards. And you're right that using the phrase parish boundary does make it safer. On the second point, we've had the suggestion that just changing one word might help. I don't know whether colleagues feel happy with that, but it would be something that we perhaps might regret if we say at no costs under any situation can we ever agree to development on green space. We might, for example, I imagine, suggest that a piece of green space could be swapped for a piece of industrial land, brown space, if you like, in certain circumstances. Perhaps we need to just slightly give ourselves a bit of elbow room there in the possibility of future development. I'm easy to let you decide on that, obviously, colleagues, but can we agree? Let's agree for take one at a time. Can we agree with Jane's proposal that the first line should change so that it now says within the parish or within the parish boundary? Everyone prepared to accept that, please? Let me know if you aren't.
Mike, can I come in?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm just I'm happy that we changed it to the parish boundary, but I'm just concerned a little in that when we think of Thetford and if we hadn't had the boundaries moved, we would presumably still want to comment on the Sue, even if it wasn't within Thetford, because morally it is the Greater Thetford, and we would to be tying our hands a little without being able to comment. But I know I understand from a planning point of view, if it's not within our parish, we can't do a lot, but we could still have a viewpoint on the adjoining things. My other thoughts are obviously Arlington Way at the moment is not in Thetford, and there's something happening on the old station site there. I think we would like to have a remark about that, something appropriate. So it's difficult if we restrict ourselves to purely the parish, then we're tying our hands a little in the comments on what might be happening on our outskirts.
Can you are you saying that? I mean, I understand you were part of the working party. Are you happy with the existing phrase, or do you want to offer a combined phrase that covers both the options?
I'm quite happy to have a combined thing, whether we said within the town of Thetford, not restricting to the parish boundary.
Well, it could be used the phrase built up area. Is that what you're after, or do you want to say, as you've just said, within the town and parish, or some such phrase? I'm sorry, colleagues. It all sounds very nitpicky, this, doesn't it? But we must recognise that it might be 10 years before we look at it again, and we may come back to it and think, why not did we say that? We're stuck with it now. So we try and get it right this time.
I hope you're going to stick with this every time we have a planning meeting.
Hands up from Councillors James and then Crawford.
Thank you very much, Jane again, and then Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence on speaking on this matter again. Would perhaps a mitigating be in this case within the town and its environs, because then that would actually encompass, the surrounding parts, or within the parish boundary and its environs, and then that covers sort of all elements. How does Councillor Wright feel about that? Does that cover everything, do you think?
Stuart, you're going to come back on that?
Yeah, he's saying
yes. My reply, so I'm happy to go with that.
Okay. Thank you for that again, Jane, and I think we can now accept that. And I've now forgotten who the second speaker was. Dennis.
Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, thank you.
It was Dennis. Yep, Dennis.
Yeah, it was me. My suggestion was just going to be that it be within the parish of Thetford and surrounding areas. I was just going to give it a little bit of a wider scope, but what Jane said will do with me.
That's great. Let's. I mean, we need to move on from the first line. I appreciate that your indulgence, Dennis, and I think we'll move on. So, can we now look at on the screen? The next one is ecology and nature conservation. Did we cover the second point before on the previous item?
I think
move it back, Mark.
No,
Mark, do we need to go back?
Well, at the moment, I've got would oppose development of public green spaces within the town rather than opposing any development of green spaces. Is that what people are? Chris, see you there? Can we go back one page or back to the previous item?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Commons Greens bullet point. We need to make sure that everyone's agreeing to that new sentence there, which reads: the town council also opposes any development on green spaces, etc.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We've got agreement on that. Okay, so now we're on the section headed ecology and nature conservation, which is the one that Mark was just talking about a moment ago. Again, if you're happy with that, can we take that new sentence there, the first bullet point, where any development is proposed within the countryside, etc. I think possibly, Mark, to make a small point, it should all be one sentence. The whole bullet point needs to have a comma after wildlife and then a small t for the town. Otherwise, it doesn't make grammatical sense. But the general sense, the gist of it, is clear enough.
Okay.
Can someone mute, please? We're getting something. It sounds like a TV program. I hesitate to suggest that.
Me.
Okay, thanks. It all went quiet. Okay, I'm going to take it that one's acceptable to everybody. And can we now look at the second bullet point? So we have to come back down a bit more, please. We've gone too far. Can we? That's it. Lovely. So we're now on this ecology and nature conservation second bullet point. The town council encourages voluntary financial contributions from developers, etc. I think this is just a technical one, isn't it? We've just updated it. That's my guess.
Hands up from Councillor James.
Jane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At risk of sounding like I'm trying to move a meeting on, and I apologise if I do, I have to say I've read the rest of the paper and I think it is excellent, and it also supports what the Town Council's vision needs to be and wants to be for the future of Thetford. And I appreciate that nobody can predict the future, but this gives us a wonderful set of guidelines, as it were, to work within, and balances our need for development, as we've already highlighted in some of the previous planning applications, but also the need for mitigation and understanding that we live in a very, very precious place. And this paper seeks to make that balance. So I would like to suggest that if nobody has any other issues, that we do adopt this. Thank you.
Jane, you've been extremely tactful in the way you said what you said. Thank you for doing that. I'm very happy to take, excuse me, I'm very happy to take the hint that we have given the first 2 points an extremely careful examination. We haven't found fault. We've fiddled with the words a little bit. The general point you're making is really important, that this is a big step forward, and congratulations to the team who've made it possible. I wonder whether we can speak. I'm anxious not to squeeze anyone out, but the general feeling, I hope, is that this is all a great improvement, as you have said. So can I just try a different way and just look at each headline and say very quickly, is there anyone who doesn't want to support this? So can I just move on to footpaths and bridleways? Is there anyone who's not?
A couple of hands up, Chair. Councillors Hodgkinson and then Canham.
Okay, so Dave first.
Yeah, agree with Jane. I've looked through this and I think it's a very good document. Just a couple of general points about the whole document. One is that I think it'd be useful if we had numbering in the document, because it's quite difficult to, in the future, to refer to things without any numbering.
Thank you.
And also the conservation area is mentioned, and I would certainly find it useful if there was a map attached showing where the conservation area is. So those are my only two comments, and they're of a general nature rather than the detail.
They're both very helpful comments. Can we take those on board, Mark, please?
Yeah.
So we wanted numbers. We wanted numbers for the points, and we wanted. And there's no reason why the bullet cut points can't be 3A or 7Z or whatever it may be. And we also wanted the second point that was just made.
Yep, that's fine.
And having, if you're happy with that, Mark, can I invite Brenda to speak, please? Brenda, did you want to add something? Mark, is Brenda muted?
It doesn't appear to be. I can't. No, it doesn't appear to be.
Okay, well, we're going to move on in that case.
She's showing muted on my screen.
Okay.
Oh, see, I can't see it on mine. It's not showing on any of them. Sorry.
Yeah.
Last call for Brenda. Brenda, did you want to speak?
Yes, I mean, I don't know what happens. It just keeps going off. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're hearing you now. It's your turn now.
Yeah, that's fine. What I was going to say is this document is, once Mark's got it all up and running with some numbers and whatever else councillors want behind it, it'd be an ideal if each committee member brought this along to every planning meeting so that you can actually refer to it. Otherwise, we've just sat down, done something, and we're never going to use it.
Good point. Thanks for that, Brenda. On the screen, the next one is mineral extraction. Can I take it, colleagues, that you're happy with that change? It's mostly wording. The next one, recycling, has no changes. The next one is archaeological sites. Just a quick phrase change. Anyone not happy with that? Okay, and on conservation area, I think we have a bullet point on the next page in effect. Any comments or questions on that bit? Okay. Looks if Jane's managed to persuade us to move along quicker. Design and environment strategy. Any comments there? If we move it up, no comments there. Definition of good design. Are we happy with that? No comment means we're happy with that. Can we look at road signage and street furniture? We've noted useful additions there. Okay, and illuminated signs. Tear them all down. Oh, I didn't say that. Conservation area shop fronts. Just a little improvement there that the committee, the working party made. And then 2 or 3 more on the next page. I'm trying to give you long enough to work out how to press the right button, colleagues, but we're going to move on to mobile telephone masts. And then to shopping areas and town centre, with this first section being called overall strategy. Any comments, please? Don't feel you have to. Large stores. And can we go up the screen a bit more, please? So we're making good progress now. Employment strategy. Carry on up the screen, please. Thank you very much. Education and hasn't got any changes. Library and further education. Slight change of phrase. Schools. Any comments, please? Housing. Can we scroll on, please? Lovely. Housing in multiple occupation, affordable housing, preservation of residential accommodation. Okay, no comments. So we'll move on to leisure and recreation and open spaces and playgrounds as an improvement there. And on to field sports and all-weather pitches. Okay, anything on transportation and car parking now? We've got public car parking and so on. Cycle, was that cycle rack? Cycle routes it was. And footpaths and buses. I reckon, Mark, we've muted everybody here. This is a clever way of doing things. Is that predestination, that word? I just can't read it. Oh, sorry, it's pedestrianisation. I'd like it to have been predestination, but never mind. Pedestrianisation. Any comments on that, please? If not, we'll look at the next one, which maybe is dwelling conversion. And then camping and caravanning. And onwards. And we'll stop there because that's it on that item. Colleagues, can we go back to what Jane said, which is to recommend this very strongly to full council? Perhaps that's unnecessary, but it's an excellent piece of work, a great improvement on what we had before, in my opinion. I'm pleased that colleagues have supported that strongly so far.
Jane proposed to adopt the report.
Do we need a proposal for that?
We have a second from Jen Hollis.
Chris,
Thank you, Jen.
Chris, do we need to make it a proposal, Chris?
Yes, well, the proposal would be really to adopt the report as amended at this committee, and it will show the amendments.
Yes, that's helpful, Chris. We've had it proposed, we've had it seconded. Colleagues, are you in favour?
Could I just ask a quick question, please, Mr. Chairman? Planning is full council, so why do we have to recommend to full council if planning is full council? Just a query.
I can't answer that one except to say normally it goes to full council. You're quite right in what you say that the councillors here represent the full council.
Well, we need to. What you said, Brenda, is entirely correct, and I was led by Chris to the suggestion that we did need to, if it's helpful to the minute taker to have it, we'll do it that way. We can confirm afterwards whether it's necessary to put it to full council. As you recall, on a previous occasion to do with the introduction of public question time, we were informed by the town clerk, advised by the town clerk, that it wasn't necessary to put that to full council. This may be a similar situation. I'd rather put it that way round, the cautious way, and say we are proposing it to the town council, that the council can say they accept it without discussion if they wish to do that. But it means that council not present.
Councillors absent.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can we leave it like that then? Everyone happy with that? I'd like to be moving on. I think the procedure is not as exciting as the reality. So let's get on with proper issues. So 1, 2, 3 is the parish partnership bid. To discuss the parish partnership bid, this is on your screen now, and you'll recall that what's happened is that Norfolk is proposing to repeat its several times already offered annual offer of supporting proposals, little minor improvements in the town, usually on a 50-50 basis, and that we have, I remind you, until the 4th of December to come up with proposals. What is the point of putting this here now is really to remind members of the council that we would like your proposals. I suggest that we think in terms of this committee considering it again in 2 months' time, so in September, which still gives us time to rethink if necessary so that we can meet the December the 4th deadline. So I'm not asking for a discussion now. I'm asking for you to be reminded that within your wards or within Thetford, if you have ideas, can you put them to us in the future so that we can discuss them at a future time? That's all that's required of this item.
Hands up from Councillors Hodgkinson and James.
Sorry, I'll take comments from Dave and then Jane in that order.
Thank you.
Dave?
I'm just wondering, well, I've got a few ideas, but I'll probably just email them in to Mark, and that may be the best way, but I don't want to air them necessarily now. But I just did wonder whether we made any provision in our budgeting for the match funding that we would have to make, because I think it's up to 25k we could receive from Norfolk County Council, I believe, but we'd have to put 25k in as well. So I just wondered whether we ever made any provision in budgeting for that in advance, because otherwise we might be scrabbling around wondering where the funding's coming from if we went for something high.
Well, it would be very clever of us to have done it if we did, because at the time, at least strictly speaking, we didn't know that this proposal was going to be repeated by Norfolk. But it may be that Jane, if I can put you on the spot, I don't know whether you've got any. Excuse me, Jane, I wonder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Comment from you as chair of finance. You might.
Sorry, Jane.
Not required to.
It's not a problem at all, to be perfectly honest with you, and it's actually something that I've queried as well. So they're actually referring to bids for the 2021-22 financial year. So when we're clever, we can budget for this in the next financial year should we need to. Quite often, whilst they say it's for the next financial year, it takes quite some time for some of these projects to come to fruition. So quite often it's not actually in the next financial year, it's in the financial year after that. So yes, we do need to, and I'm delighted that councillors are already planning ahead for next year's budget already. But yes, we will need to make some sort of acknowledgement of that, yes.
Many thanks, Jane. I think there was another colleague who wanted to speak, and I'm sorry to say I haven't got a notice.
Councillor Wright.
It's Stuart. Okay, Stuart.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, to answer Dave, really, I think, yes, we have scrambled around trying to find reserves to match fund some things in the past. What I would say is let's not get too worried about it. If we've got a good idea, let's take it forward. Usually we're at the whim of the county council engineer of what projects he will support, but also we are in the past have made decisions that we've chosen not to support because we didn't feel it was our place to do so. But I think, the more ideas that come forward, the more we can discuss them and sand them out. But I'm mindful that the Norfolk County Council engineer is a bit of a gatekeeper.
We rather hijacked Councillor James's hands up, I'm afraid, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Apologies. I did just want to sort of come in on it, and Councillor Hodgkinson was absolutely correct that we need to plan ahead. And in the interest of pulling so many threads together, bearing in mind that specific things that they will support are formal footways and trods. I need to give my apologies for the sculpture trail working walk, as it were, coming up. But is that perhaps something that we can work smartly for and utilise perhaps this sort of thing, if there's any improvements that might need to be made on that particular sculpture trail, and actually do some real partnership working? Thank you.
Perhaps I can get back to you after we go on the walk. Yeah, I mean, those councillors going on the walk, I think that's a very good thing to look out for, is certainly improvements to pedestrian and wheelchair access.
I mean, on the subject of wheelchair access, we do have a major problem with drop curbs, and that if that was an issue that you wanted to raise for your ward or part of town where you're concerned, the town centre is not always good. By which I mean not all of the town centre is good. That would be very acceptable too. I think the gatekeeper, to use that lovely word, would probably accept that. And I'm going to say that we ought to be clear that this will be on our agenda in 2 months' time. Please have ideas ready, and we'll whittle them down in some way so that we can have a good discussion of what we think is the best bet for Thetford, especially as we now, as Jane has pointed out, have the opportunity of funding it in next year's finance. So, having said that, we're looking now at item 124, which is
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, can I just come back on the last agenda item? If we all send
yes, you can.
Yeah, if we all think about what we would like to see, then they can go off to Mark, and then they can be discussed in the September meeting, because he'd have a list there.
I'm happy to be the repository for your ideas, folks.
What I'm going to suggest is that we do exactly that, and that in the August meeting, I will seek to remind you that within a period of time, say a week before the September meeting, any proposals need to be with Mark. But that I'm happy to say that now. So let's go for a week before the September meeting, proposals to Mark. Okay. Thanks for that. That's a useful addition, Brenda. 124. This is a bit of a shock, isn't it, Mark, to say there's nothing to be said?
Unprecedented in my limited experience, but yeah,
yes,
we can wave that one through.
Okay. Hurrying on before they phone and say you've forgotten something, hurrying on to 125, items to be referred to the Greater Thetford Partnership. You will recall, colleagues, that it came in our minutes this last time around that we had some contact with the Greater Thetford Partnership and were perhaps hoping for a reply. Is there any councillor present who is able to update us on any of the issues that we raised last time around?
Got a hands up from Jane James. I've just noticed actually on the agenda there's more than 12520. We've got there's the variance issues, which I can deal with very quickly if you're happy for me to do so, and then we can go straight on to GTP.
Can I suggest that, having started the second one, deal with that, and we'll come back to the variance. So Jane, you're
in which case, hands up from Jane James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as councillors will be aware, the issues and considerations that were raised at the last planning meeting were forwarded via email to the GTP officer, and they were also again raised at the most recent meeting that we had last week. It's a Zoom blur, it really is. So I apologise. Obviously, Jack, the new GTP manager, the partnership manager that we're co-funding, only joined at the end of March, and obviously March the world changed quite considerably, and he was thrust into the COVID response side of things. He has also since been off on paternity leave as well, and we wish him and his family and new baby Grace well. Councillor Robinson is still pursuing answers to those issues raised, so I apologise that it is a holding statement, but I'm mindful that you guys want specific answers, and till I can give you specific answers, that's what I need to give you as a holding statement in those terms. But what I would also say is part of the agenda, apologies, just put it up on my other machine, from the GTP meeting was set for green infrastructure, and the letter that Councillor Wright sent regarding the green infrastructure and cycle routes and that kind of thing was discussed. Obviously, there is the Norfolk County Council travel plan and their survey that they did regarding the town. So that might be at risk of preempting any suggestions for the parish partnership. Again, perhaps that's another opportunity that we can say, we feel that passionately about this, that we're prepared to put our money where our mouth is. So come and meet us halfway. I'm happy to take any questions. I may not be able to answer them, but obviously Councillor Robinson is still pursuing specific answers about those exact information that is on your screen at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jane. And before colleagues reply, I just point out the old saying, don't shoot the messenger, which is what Jane is acting as on this occasion. Are there any comments from colleagues about what Jane has just said, or any requests for further clarification or what have you?
Hands up from Councillor Robinson, right, in that order.
Yep. Carry on, please.
Is it me first? Is it me first, Mr. Chair?
Jen.
Yeah. Sorry,
Jen,
I was just reading again.
No,
can I just ask Councillor Dane how this Jack Weaver, Jack Weaver, is he actually going to be based in Thetford for work, or is he working from Dereham or wherever? Can I just ask that? So that he knows, Thetford as the town, sort of thing.
If I may come back, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please, Jane.
Thank you. So he has had boots on the street, as it were, for want of a better phrase. He has been engaging to an extent. Obviously, we are mindful that at this point in time, social distancing measures are still in place, and he is also working from home. And he is, starting to develop those relationships with the businesses in the town. And there's quite a positive thing to come from COVID, if there is such a thing, unfortunately, is that he is part of our team for the confidence. He is heading that up. So he's engaging with our businesses here and now, supporting them in that recovery phase. So there's a great opportunity there for him to build those relationships that we need him to build as a town council, and obviously he needs to build in fulfilment of his role. So it's a little bit of both at the moment. I know that doesn't completely answer your question, but we're getting there.
That sounds good, though.
No, I think that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Do we have another speaker? Was it Stuart?
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I'm conscious that we still need the green infrastructure answered. I'm aware of the constraints of the partnership manager not being about and COVID. So I think we just need to keep that one on the front grill, shall we say? But I also did send another letter regarding the conservation area, which I had a response from Sam Chapman Allen to say that it hadn't met the agenda timescale for the Greater Thetford Partnership. But I am mindful that when we put bids in, we are getting monies turned down because we don't have a conservation area appraisal. And I think that would be nice if we could refer that to the Greater Thetford Partnership for a response, because funding for the town centre heritage side will need to come forward, and that should be something that Greater Thetford Partnership is engaged with doing, and a conservation area appraisal should be up there on the menu of things to be delivered.
Can I say thank you very much for that, Stuart? And I think it's a very, I hope colleagues will agree that it's a very reasonable question to ask, and the reference to Greater Thetford Partnership is totally justified. Perhaps that's something, Jane, that you and your colleague can take up in the near future.
I'd be delighted to, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed.
So Callum, hand up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, the Greater Thetford Development Partnership, when they had their meetings, they're obviously online. Is there any chance that they would be meetings which people can watch? I've been watching Cabinet for the last few weeks and planning. I just think it's an idea where people can see what the work is that's being done.
Any response from that,
Chair? At this point in time, I don't believe that is an option, because obviously there was the decision made that they wouldn't be public meetings. I am able to advise that obviously at the end of April we were scheduled to have a public forum. Obviously that could not happen. Currently, the next scheduled meeting is for Thursday, the 15th of October, which is currently, and I keep using that word, and conditionally, at risk of sounding like someone else, is to be followed by a public forum. So hopefully, should all things be equal, we will that public engagement opportunity will exist in October. But at this stage, obviously, the decision was made that those meetings weren't open to the public to enable that frank and free discussion from the elected bodies, of which obviously you've delegated myself on and Mark onto, and council officers, you know, to explore the art of the possible. And it's very much that melting pot and that thought process at this stage. But obviously the public forum can be the solidification of that and the demonstration of, as you know, has rightly been requested, you know, what have you done so far? Does that help?
I think we accept, Jane, again, that you are carrying the message rather than responsible for the message. I think there are those who would regard it as all rather unfortunate that there's less public scrutiny, or if you like to put it that way. We do understand that in any case there are difficulties caused by CV, of course. It would be good to feel that at the public forum that might follow the 15th October meeting, that the issue could be broached again of making the meetings more available in some form or other, whether it would be an agenda or whether it would be a version of the discussion, amended version of discussion, redacted version of discussion, which would be available to the public, some way in which the public, and including that and councillors, can feel that that the discussions about their town is something which is not shrouded in mystery. So please keep on making the point that trust is a bit of a narrow thing, a difficult thing to maintain if there's no real communication, open communication. So probably I've said enough on that, and others may disagree. So if there are other comments to be made about what James just said, now's your opportunity, colleagues.
Hands up, Councillor Crawford.
Dennis, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm back with you. I had to rejoin the meeting. you know my opinion on the Thetford Development Partnership, and that since it's gone secret, they don't want us to know anything. Our reps there do their best to try to keep us informed, but we're not getting much information back because they can only tell us what they're told to tell us. And I just think that it's a waste of everybody's time doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments, please?
Chair, it's Chris Crimmin here. Could I just ask Councillor James, did you say that the infrastructure is going to be on the next agenda right at the beginning of this, Jane?
The Thetford Green infrastructure was an agenda item on the last meeting last week.
It was, thank you.
And that was prompted by Councillor Wright's letter.
Yes,
and that was actually considered in the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Jane, thank you very much for your comments on this issue, and we do appreciate that you are bringing us comments which are not necessarily yours. They're the comments of the organisation, so it is appreciated. You're in a slightly difficult position in this matter. We're going to move on, colleagues, to item 126, which is committee officers update. Mark,
can I just remind you, Chair, of the variances?
Oh, yes, you can. Colleagues, we have two 125s, and Mark has pointed out quite rightly that we haven't done decisions of variance yet. So it's on your screen now, and you can see.
Yeah, it should be pretty quick.
You can see 4 items in which the Brecon Council has come to a view, and those are they. So one on the yes, Mark.
Just to clarify, 285. It wasn't actually an objection from Thetford Town Council, but there was a comment would have preferred it to stay as a shop, but that has gone through. Change on the Forest Retail Park from shop to gym. 455, it's Grenville Way, sorry, rather than Greville Way. But there was sort of three extensions proposed to one house, one that's sort of at the side, one at the back, one at the front. The Town Council opposed front one on the grounds it was affecting the street scene, but that has also gone through. Well, Old Bury Road, as was mentioned earlier, that has now actually been granted planning permission. As some people may well already be aware, 1006 1 Vicarage Road, the appeal for the additional house there has been dismissed.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. On to item 126, which is this time is still the committee officers update, and it's Mark, you again.
Yep, nothing further, Chair.
Thank you very much. 127, community engagement. Do we need to agree any consultation or media release, colleagues? We don't normally. He says optimistically and trying
again, nothing from us.
Colleagues, I'd like to. Sorry. Did someone want to make a comment about the community engagement? I may have misheard. Apparently
no,
not.
I thought there was a hands up from Councillor Crawford, but that was from the last item.
I was probably pushing on too hard because it does take sometimes a while to move from one screen to another and then find where your cursor is or whatever it may be. So, having given us a moment's thought on that and not had a response, can I thank everyone, members of the public and members of the committee, for their time today and declare the meeting closed. Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Chairman. Good meeting again, Mike. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike and Mark, can I say that when I was sharing the screen, I couldn't actually